Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Custom. So today I'm sharing with you a work in progress video of designing and producing a 3D digital head sculpt for a swap out premium format statue. Now this is my own personal project, but I just wanted to share this with you guys in case you have an item in your collection and you want to change up the head or the arm or the base, or maybe you and a group of friends have the same item but you guys want to have a specific head sculpted from a cartoon or something. And there's a lot of options in the hobby. You just can pull your resources together and you can get something really done really cool. So you don't always have to pull something out of the box and then say, oh, just because the head is bad or the arm is bad, I don't like the item. But if the sculpt is great and you don't like it, you can always change it up. Now I'll kind of give you a rundown of how this came to be too. It's a good learning process for me to get my skills up, but it was also because I was getting frustrated at one point. When I was doing these Power Girl premium format customs for myself from Sideshow back in 2016, 2017, I wasn't really good at sculpting short hair, and I want to get more skills in sculpting short hair. And the problem was I was only limited to one head per statue because I didn't have always the exclusive. And after looking at them down the line, I'm like, yeah, maybe I could have done this, maybe I could have done that, or try this style instead. So my friend actually gave me the idea. He's got a couple premium formats, and he always wanted specific styles of the premium format. He loved the body, but he didn't like the head, so he actually commissioned traditional sculptors to do heads for him on his items, and then he also was doing some 3D sculpting too as well with some people. So he was working with Tony Cipriano, so I said, you know what, maybe I should try to contact Tony and try to get a head done. So I contacted Tony and I showed him what I wanted done, and I sent them a couple reference pictures of some actresses, like, certain eyes and noses I wanted done, because I wanted this item to be a little bit more comic looking and serious than what Sideshow gave you. Because Sideshow's head was great, but it was a little bit smirking, like smiling. I didn't want to go that route with it. So basically what I'm going to show you guys in the video is working with Tony, showing you the 3D pictures he would send me of the work in progress, some of the Photoshop skills that I used to tweak those pictures, how I kind of wanted it changed. And then after that, we'll get into what I deal with Ownage of sending them the file and then having them send me PDFs and trying to scale everything out. So it's a good learning process, Now I got a better idea of producing and designing. I like doing a lot of the Photoshop work for my friends because a couple of my friends are doing 3D sculpting with people, and they send me the files and they say, hey, can you kind of tweak this because I'm seeing something wrong with it, but I don't know how to explain it to the sculptor. So I go into Photoshop and I tweak it for them. They send it to the sculptor, and the sculptor actually understands what's going on. So it's working out pretty good that route. Plus, it also helps me getting my molding skills up, and also I'm going to be able to do a lot more sculpting of short hair now on these items, and I could get those skills up as well. So the way it worked out too is we're actually at the end result, but what I'm going to do is we're going to finish up the video, show you all that stuff, and then I got another two-part video of the molds. So right now, the way it was designed was I wanted to make sure that the head was separated from the hair so I can sculpt it, and we have the ears. Then we're going to follow up over here with the test head prints from Ownage. You'll see that later in the video. Also making a key for the head of the test print of the 3D print, so you can actually make the mold and stuff. And then over here are the molds. We'll come back with a two-part video series on making these two-part molds and making copies and give you guys an idea of what's involved with that process. But with that being said, we're going to get and dive into the 3D part, and then we'll do the Ownage part, and then like I said, we'll come back later on with the videos of the mold making. So it's a little bit of a lengthy process, but if you're really into it and you really want to make something cool for your items, it's definitely worth it. So let's get into the 3D part now. Okay, so in the beginning of the project, basically what I did is I sent this to Tony and I said, we don't need to worry about the key, and we don't need to worry about the top of the head. We have to focus on the face and the ears. That's the main thing that I want sculpted, because the whole idea is I'm going to be able to do a lot of hair sculpting on my own with these. I also showed him here that, this is kind of what we need to focus on. Don't worry about too much of all that other stuff. So as you can see here, the neck is just a simple rod coming through the neck. He was able to really just go to town on it right away. This is kind of like the first projects he sent me, and I was like, you pretty much got the looks of what I was going for. So what he did is he sent a couple pictures of different angles and different, where you can see it. So, you could see over there in the hair. You can actually see in the hair going to the ear, and it's not covered. That's kind of like what I was going for. And you can see the bottom left too. You can see the curve around the cheeks and stuff. And, he sent straight on and side picks because I wanted to make sure there was certain volume and the way things were working. And it was definitely going to the direction I want. There's a couple changes that'll come up, but it wasn't really many on this. It was really good off the bat. Next step is where keying. He was able to actually key this all out. We had a little bit of confusion of how it was going to work, but in the end, I ended up putting the scalp onto the item, and the hair kind of clicked on with no issues. So he was able to key it all in, which was cool. Now here is where I started doing the Photoshop work. I didn't really like her smiling. I wanted more serious. So as you can see with those two pink arrows on the corners of her mouth, I sort of took those down a little bit. I wasn't really feeling that smirkiness to it. And then I started telling him about the hair underneath. It was coming down too far. I wanted to bring it up a little bit more. And I also said that we have to be careful that the hair isn't touching the neck because it's going to go into the statue and the hair's got to kind of come out around the neck. We didn't want to, do this where I get the item and then all of a sudden I'm trying to put her on, but the hair is hitting that like collar, and we didn't want to go that route. But like I said, it really wasn't many changes to work with this. Sometimes when I work with my friends on changes, I'm really doing a lot of Photoshop work, but this was just simple tweaking some areas here and there and just being able to show them what I wanted to do. So it just makes life easier for both of us instead of trying to explain it in an email. And then what he did is he did the tweaks and he just put some eyes in there to show me. And then after that I said, can you send me a digital color? And this is what he sent me, and then I did a Photoshop of it onto the statue to see if this is where I wanted to go. And I was really happy with that. I think this was really showing the kind of look I was going for with Power Girl. Okay, guys, I got the 3D print in from Onage. Now, this is a test print. This is part of the whole thing of, it's better to have a test print come to you, making sure everything's in scale. So when I got this head and I put it up to the statue, I was like, oh my god, it's just way too big. But, I mean, the head is beautiful. I love the way it's sculpted. Everything's looking good. It's exactly like almost exactly like the actress that I wanted, but I think this is going to fit really good with this statue. Plus, it's just something different for personal. And so I contacted owners. I said, look, this is just way too big. What can we do and how do we go about this process? So after some measurements and some talking with them, they sent me a PDF file and they said, print this at 100%. Don't print it at, don't fit it the page. Don't fit it, shrink it, large it, whatever. So this is the head that they sent me. This is the scale of the head. And then what they did is they shrunk it down like 2%, 4%, and 6% or something like that. So what I was doing is I had a couple of these printed out and I cut out the pieces and I'm like, all right, which one? So it seems like the smallest one is going to be the one in scale. So what I did was I had all these pieces like this and I'm walking around the statue and I'm kind of like, okay, does it look like it's in scale? It's kind of just like fudging it, but the problem is having a piece of paper on a 3D item is not going to let you know if it's correct because you want to look at it from this angle, you want to look at it up and down and making sure everything's looking good. So, after talking with Onage, I'm like, maybe I should actually send you the head that came with the statue. Maybe I should send this to you. And they're like, well, by the time money you spend for this and then shipping it back and all that stuff, it's like you're spending the same amount of money if they just take the smaller print of here and just charge me to do another test print. So they're going to send me the new test print, and since it's hollow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the second one that I get in, because they're actually going to give me the hair this time too. I say send me the hair as well. I want to make sure everything's looking good. I'm going to fill this in with tin foil, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around here. I'm going to actually add a key to it. So I did a video on making a copy of a key for a Joker premium format. So I'll link that in the description, but it's the same exact process. I took my easy mold, I mixed A and B together, and then what I did is I had this half of plastic cup. I threw some extra mold pieces at the bottom because I didn't want the key to fall, the head to fall away to the bottom. I wanted it to touch this piece here first. So I poured in, you just push it in, and then what I did is I smushed the head in like that, and then I let it sit on the, desk for about, 15 minutes. So now I had a little bit of a cheap, mold for a key. So then I took some resin, poured in resin, I let that sit for its cure time, which is about 5-10 minutes, and then boom, I have myself a key. Now this wasn't a perfect mold. You can see around the edges I had to sand it down, but it's not a problem. So when I get the new test head, which is going to be smaller, I said, you know what, I'm going to go, above and beyond and make sure everything's in scale. So now we have a key, and then when I get the head, which is going to be hollow again, I'm going to actually cut around here, and I'm going to attach it to this key. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is for two reasons. One, I want to make sure the new test head is in scale. And two, it's going to give me practice for when I get the final head print in to make sure I know where to cut it and how to attach it the best way. So this way I have a nice, head onto a key. Then I can mold and cast up the copies that I want to do. So that's where we're at. So I'm going to get this new head in probably in another week or two. It's going to be a little bit smaller. We're going to kind of, do the whole following of the video on how I kind of cut it out around there. We're going to attach it to this key. And then what we'll probably do is if it's looking good and we're in scale where I want it to be, I'm going to actually do a nice, coat of paint too. I'll do some primer, we'll do some paint, and I'm going to try to, match up this paint here a little bit, just to give me an idea that everything's in scale. This way I could turn the statue and I could look at it at all different angles, making sure everything's looking good. And then if everything looks good, I'm going to tell Onage just send me the final 3D print, which is like a really good print. It's super detailed. There's no mess ups because, like I said, this is just a cheap print up, and you can kind of see all the little line work and stuff, and all this little stuff sticking out. So these are just like cheap prints that they do, I guess, for smaller stuff like this. So that's where we're at. So, hopefully everything works out pretty good. So, like I said, in a week, we'll see how everything looks. And then we'll do the whole mock-up. And then, after that's all done and we're good to go, when I get the final head in, I'll show you guys the final head. We'll attach that to a key. And then I'm going to show you guys how I mold and cast. Now, I am not super perfect at molding and casting. I'm still learning as I go. But for some of the smallest stuff I do, I haven't had any issues the way I do it. So we'll show you how all that stuff works. But this is a good video series for people who, maybe they have a statue and, it's like, I don't like this head. I always wanted it sculpted like this famous artist. And this sculptor can actually nail it. So this is kind of like the whole process you would have to go through. But it's pretty cool. So I'm having a lot of fun. It's a good learning experience. It's also good for help for production. If I ever had to produce something and, go that route, at least I got this under my belt now. Because it's not something you can really learn in schools and stuff. It's kind of a fun thing. So that's where we're at. So hopefully another week we'll be back and we can start getting this plugged away and hopefully get this, finished printed head to me within the next month or so. Alright guys, so we got a bit of an update. Onage was able to send me a second head print with the hair this time, but sadly it's just way too big still. So we're just looking at a really big head, so what's going on. So after talking with them, I said, yeah, I think you guys are scaling this stuff way too big, because I know, they've been printing up a lot of these kits and stuff, and even though they're saying they're 1/4 scale, they're friggin' huge. I mean, they're definitely bigger. They're almost close to 1/3 scales. But what they did is they sent me another test print. I told them, I said, I think we need to go 10% smaller, not 1%, not 2%. I said, we're at that point where it's like almost a half a size, bigger than this head here. So I said, we got to scale it down to like 10-15%. So they sent me this another sheet, and then what I did is I did some cutouts. This is the smallest head here. And I think this is pretty much where we have to be. I think it's this, let me make sure. Let's see. Yeah, so this is the smallest one. So I told him, I said, I think this is the head that is what it's got to be. I think that's their correct scale. I also asked them to do a side view without the hair, because, on the 3D print they could take out the hair. So this way what I could do is I could take the side view and I can see how it looks like that, so I could actually see how we're looking. So I'm gonna hopefully they'll be able to send me a side view print pretty soon, and we'll go from there. But pretty much we're wrapping this up. We're gonna get ready to print this out. But I think this is really where we're at. I think this is the correct head size. Just trying to go through head prints and stuff like this. It's a little bit challenging, but I think that's the one where we're at. I think it's going, because what I'm doing is I've been taking the head and I've been putting it from nose to mouth to chin to eyes, and we're looking pretty good. And I'm also realizing that this head's just a little bit, wider in the cheek area, kind of. So I'm also looking at, the line coming from here to here, because when you put this one up, you can see how wide it is coming down. So you gotta, the whole cheeks of where it's going to go. So that's kind of where we're looking at. I think that's the one that's going to be it. So I'm going to wait for them to get back to me, and then we'll see about finishing up this update, and hopefully they can get it printed out. Okay, so I went on the sheet. You know, this is just the one on the sheet. The other one I kind of cut up. It looks like out of all these sizes, it's going to be the big one. That's the size we're going to be using. They scaled them down to the point where they're looking good. So this is the front-on view. We're looking pretty good there. You can kind of see what it would look like. Hold on, let's get a little bit back. There we go. So that's where we're at with that one. I think that's in scale because not only am I looking at the hair, but I'm looking at the cheeks and the way the ears fall compared to the other head. So you can see this head here, it's kind of like almost the same. You know, we're trying to keep it in that sense. Then what we do is we take off this one here so we can kind of see where the ears are falling. So we're looking pretty good on that. I think that's looking good. It's got a nice chin going across and everything, so it's not too big. And then so what we do is we turn her, and let's see. So this is the side view of there, and I think that's looking pretty good because the chin, you know, it does come out pretty far to where this one was. This one comes out really far, so you can see it kind of chin comes down to right about where the circle is on the outfit there. And so if we were to tweak this one, it would be kind of like the same. About. And then we have this piece of paper here with the hair. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what's going to happen with the hair and stuff like that. So I think that's the head. I think we're at a pretty good scale. I cut it all out. I measured it. Everything's looking pretty good. I think that's going to be where we want it to be. So I'm going to talk to Onage and hopefully we get this printed out now. Alright guys, so we got the final print from Onage. I'm really happy with it, and I'm glad I told him to go just a shy smaller than the one that I thought was going to work, because I had a funny feeling it was going to be too big, and I think this kind of worked out in a perfect scale. So if you look at them, it looks great. I think it's in the perfect scale. This head is just a shy smaller than this head here, but that's kind of alright. That's what I wanted. I didn't want this head too big, and I think it's going to work out pretty good. You can kind of see how we're looking, you know. And looking from the side, everything looks good. And I think just a tiny bit of a smaller head is going to make it look like the breast and the body's a little bit bigger too, which is fine. But I mean, all in all, I mean, looking from side to side, it's like in a nice, good scale. Everything's looking good. And I think it's going to work out pretty cool. So next step is we have to do the key. Now, working on this key, I'll do a video series on how I do molding and casting. Like I said, I am not a super pro at molding and casting. I'm still learning. I kind of do it the cheesy way, but you guys will see when we get to that. But so I don't want to prime this up at all. I want to be able to put this right into the mold and get all this detail, because if I throw any primer on here and I mess up or anything, and then I'm going to get screwed. But I want to put this key on here. So I'm going to go, this is our next step, I'm going to go into the garage. I'm going to Dremel out around here as far as I can. I'm probably not going to Dremel all the way up there. I'm going to try to keep this key. I'm going to take this down to like around here, and I might do that and just kind of add this on. I mean, the other option too is, now that I think about it, I could probably just kind of Dremel down this neck a little bit. But actually, I'm going to keep it. I think I'm going to keep. Yeah, I'm going to use this because this key fits perfectly in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Dremel out this as much as possible. I'm going to attach this and we're going to go, because I want to be able to just like mask off a lot under here and be able just to prime around the key and smooth it out. I don't want to get any primer up around on the face. I want to keep it as smooth as possible. So that's where we're at. Let me get into the garage when I get a chance. I'll Dremel this down. We'll attach the key, and then we'll get this ready and set up, so this way we can start to do the molding and casting part of it. Okay, so I went into the garage and I Dremeled out the key area, so you can see it's kind of messy and everything, but that's alright. I gotta just make sure the key is pretty much set up there. And we designed it anyway where the neck was thin, so it goes in here pretty well. I have to build out the neck and everything on the side, but what we'll do is we'll put the head pieces on so you guys can get an idea. This is pretty much how I guess you go about all this process, because you're making a head and then you got to kind of key it afterwards through a 3D onto a sculpt that's already there. But it looks pretty good. I mean, I think that's exactly where I want it. Like I said, you have to build out. It's in a good position too in the front of where the chin kind of goes down. I can't bring it out any further, plus it would look weird because we have to keep this circle piece around here. But other than that, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to get this attached and lined up. It's going to be hard to kind of film it while I'm doing it. And then I'm going to let it cure. And then after that, what I'll do is we'll pop off the hair. And then when this piece is on this like this, when it's on it like that, what I can do is I can get my Aves and I can seam up around the edges and stuff. And then I'll clean up around here. I'll fill in a little bit of here. So what I have to do is kind of just add a little bit of a pin, some glue, and some Aves in here and make sure it's set. It kind of stays on pretty well for now, but of course we have to kind of set it all up. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So I think it's looking pretty good, and I think it's going to be a good looking key when done. Alright, so I got the head on. It's going to take a little time for this to cure. I don't want to mess with it till later tonight, and then I could kind of clean up in the neck area. And I think now that I realize after kind of messing with this, I'm going to attach the back of the skull to her head, and I'm going to try to seam up this line up around there. Because when we first were designing it, we figured that it'll have to do 3 pieces because these hair pieces will never go on. But the way things are working out, like, you really don't even need to have it separated. They go on perfectly fine. So it might fall, but we get a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. So I think I'm going to attach the head. I might even just glue it right now and then maybe do a little bit of a seam and then later tonight kind of clean it up. But what I really want to do is I want to make sure I don't mess anything up where I have to prime any of the face. I don't want to prime any of the face. I don't want anything going. I think they might have primed it already, because I think it's printed up in like a pinkish resin, because when you kind of sand it down and wipe it away, it's got a layer. So maybe they kind of did something, but I like it. I think we're at a good position. We can see how it looks there on the side. Nice, good side portrait, and good front. So yeah, it's looking really good. I'm really happy with it. So like I said, I'm going to probably glue up the skull, the back of the skull now. There's no reason to have it separated now that things are working out. And then this way I could only make 3 molds, the 2 hair pieces and the head, and I don't have to worry about the back of the skull. So this way, when I cast it up, and then I make copies, if I want to do some custom hairstyles on my own and just have some fun with it, I don't have to worry about gluing up the skull and doing extra steps. If I do it now, and everything will be set and ready to go. So that's where we're at, and hopefully maybe later tonight we could kind of do a little more cleaning onto it. Alright, so what I did is I thickened out the neck and everything's looking pretty good in scale now. It's not actually super clean, only because I have to sand some of it down. Some of the back here, what happened was the hair was hitting that area, so I had to kind of bring it in a little bit, and I'm going to have to sand it down and everything, but right now we're looking pretty good. The only thing I know that's going to happen is once I sand it down, I'm going to have to use some of my my putty and basically go underneath the neck area, because I don't want to go too much under there with the Aves, because I know there's kind of a line hitting there, but I want to make sure I can get in there pretty well. But other than that, I'm really liking it, looking really good. I did use some of this putty up around here. I'm going to do another little line going across and smooth that down. And then I think once we're pretty much ready to go and everything's looking good and I sanded it down, I'm going to mask off a lot of the ear and the face with some old silly putty. And then I'm going to prime around the neck area and stuff, and then I'm going to sand it down because I don't want to get any primer on that face at all. I want to keep it as clean as possible. So I'm also making sure that I get no residue on my hands and I accidentally like touch any of the eyes or eyebrows and stuff like that. So I'm trying to be very, very careful. But we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. And then once it's all said and done and everything's looking good, I'm going to go underneath and probably set up an area with a magnet, kind of drill out a little hole as well. And this way I can add the magnet hole there and get the magnets all set up as well. And then after that, it's pretty much just molding and casting.